This video is an introduction to a book I'm writing at the moment, so it's kind of a preview of some of the martial arts principles. This is one of 75 principles that will be in the book, and please enjoy. This sort of stuff is not usually taught in video form. It's taught one-on-one. A book form is actually a good way of finding out what's going on. I will be doing complementary videos to go along with the book, because on its own a book's not going to be able to show what the principles are, and it's a bit too hard to explain. It's easier to show the principles in video form, but the video form's not very good for explaining them. So we need a book and videos to explain these things. And these 75 plus principles of martial arts which I'll be covering. I hope this one's going to be interesting for you. Okay, thank you.
Principle of the timing of striking together. Coming or flowing or striking together, meeting, or gathering at one point. Let the opponent think that they have won just before you defeat them. As an example of this, the strategy of the timing of striking together, to strike together in the same instant, or in the same timing. You finish your attack/defense at the same time as the opponent is, seeing/feeling that he is going to strike you. Though you have moved in the process, and he attacks empty space, as an opponent tries to strike you, you attack him, after he commences his attack, and you finish your attack in the same timing as he completes his attack. In other words, you start after, and arrive with him. This is not quite as simple as it sounds at first, because of 3 points. 1. If you start too soon, he will notice, and take evasive action. 2. If you start too late, he will hit you. 3. You must use correct body movement to take yourself out of the line of attack. The simplified term would be sidestepping, but it should be much more elegant than that. Using this strategy, it is possible to defeat anybody's attacking strategy, and here is why. It is impossible to change a pattern of behavior once it is running in a sequence. Imagine a diver deciding to stop just after he left the diving board. His situation is now hopeless and beyond his control. If the opponent is attacking you, and let's say he is stepping forward with his right foot and swinging into your face with a vertical right punch, haymaker type, he comes to a point of no return starting about 3/4 of the distance into the attack. At this point he cannot divert his trajectory, especially if he is emotionally charged or over-focused. The pattern of this behavior is reaching the end of its sequence. This is a good time to move. When you do, and the more economical the movement, the better. He will still continue on the same trajectory as he was originally on. It is beyond his control to change, if your counter-attack timing has been correct. Taking advantage of his opening, in Japanese suki, refers to a gap, as in the space between two bricks, as you can see a very small gap. At this point you can grab, or hit him anywhere you like at this point, as he can do nothing about it. To do that, he must first stop the behavior sequence that is running, or he has to complete the behavior sequence. If stopping it is beyond his conscious control, he must stop one behavior pattern or complete it before he can change to another behavior pattern. As he attacks, and when you attack, he enters a dilemma. He is in a attacking behavior sequence, plus he is in a attacking posture physically and mentally, which in nearly all cases is impossible to defend from. From the moment he attacks, he immediately relinquishes his defense. As you now counter-attack, he finds himself abruptly in need of a defensive position, as he is now wide open for a counter-attack. You are, on the other hand, quite safe, as you now undertake your own attacking sequence pattern towards him. With this timing, he is rather occupied with himself. It is important to counter-attack him with much more spirit, pure intention, not anger, than he was attacking you with. He was the first to attack, so you can get the measure of him. Attack him with twice their intention that he attacked you with, and he will mentally and physically collapse. And remember that you are the initial focus point of his attack, and it is important to remove yourself from this point with the right timing. And the timing is to observe his point of no return and to anticipate, feel, that his attack will end. You will then move, and attack him at the point where he cannot change his attack. Once you have practiced this timing, you will then eventually be able to move into an opponent's space to hit him, and to grapple at will and in safety. Messages travel around the nervous system at around 200 miles per hour. This is not very good when a weapon like a sword, and for instance, can be the same speed in the hands of an expert. This does not give you much time to move. Messages traveling around the nervous system at around 200 miles per hour is not sufficient enough to counter something like a sword on its way, so it is no wonder strategies like this one have come about. Let us look at what happens when the attacker attacks. As the attacker attacks, the defender also attack. When the first attacker reaches the point of no return, behaviorally, this is usually about 3/4 of the way through his movement pattern. You must discern his level of ability. The defender begins his counter-attack. The speed of light is just over 186.000 miles per second. When the defender's moving away reaches the attacker's eyes, then the speed slows down considerably to around 200 miles an hour as the message continues from his eyes to his brain. Thereupon there are numerous calculations about the geometry, vectors and presuppositions, as well as predicting where the attacker is moving to, and what, if anything, can be done about it. Then the results are sent to the relevant muscles again at 200 miles per hour, and he begins to adjust his movement. Fortunately for the defender, the attacker was attacking, and not just evading, and so the defender will be most likely midway through his calculations when the attacker engages him. Another point that must be mentioned is that the attacker's mind is in downtime. Listen to note 1 on awareness at the end, as he registers the defender moving from his focus point. This also depends on his experience. This can last for a split second, but this is enough. But the defender, while the attacker is in downtime, he is inside his own mind, and not on the outside where the fight is. All this will add up to his defeat. All that remains now is that the defender selects the correct defensive move, and using all of the aforementioned principles of body movement, attack an open location to bring the attacker to his defeat. Of course, the quicker the opponent attacks, the less time you have to do this, so it takes practice to use this principle. Moving on. All that was said before was what to do in defense perspective, but what about offense? Let us look at using this timing in relation to offensive strategy now follows in this simple scenario. As you, the attacker, approach him, the opponent with a right hand punch, he begins to block your punch with a inside left hand parry. The timing of hitting together is started when the opponent is at the point of no return, about 2/3 into his parry. As he just touches your right wrist with his parry, you strike his right ribs from the outside of his right arm with a left punch, where he now has an opening. The have in effect set him up. The common term is feinting. The principle here is to open him up somewhere, by guiding him somewhere else. Although this is common in training practices in the martial arts, it is rarely used to a degree in real combat. That is because fighters become narrow-minded by the stress of real fighting. See the breathing principle, or they simply forget, because they have not put in enough training into it. If you always train using this principle, it is with other abilities it will become an unconscious competence. One more example, that we all know, and explains this principle well, and is familiar with all school children, is the old and shaking ruse. As someone comes, grasp your hand with the intention of shaking it. At the last second you raise your fingers to your face, and put your thumb on your nose, and waggle your fingers. This is the principle of hitting together in one of the most simple, if not most used forms. The principle of breaking his behavior sequence is what lies behind the strategy of hitting together, and feinting amongst others. If you understand this, then you will understand many stratagems. By Trevor Robinson, Russian Martial Art UK. Systema.